They did not commit crimes.
Because you're smarter than me. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
What?
That's a racist argument you just made.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into eugenics, but you just said you're smarter. I don't think that. I don't think any race is smarter.
I don't want to call them any names, but this argument that black people are just inherently victims of society, it has to go because it's racist.
By saying if you get married, you lose your government benefits.
Birth control for lower income people. That's why.
Then why is it only their community, the black community, that saw a spike in the single motherhood rate?
Because they don't have the same access to it because they've been written out of those laws.
What? We are not written out the laws. Oh my goodness. It gets worse and worse.
Was written to benefit only white people. Why is it that Asian Americans are the richest people by race in America right now?
Because the Constitution wasn't written to make people rich.
Was the Constitution written in Korean?
What?
The Constitution was written to make people enslaved.
Yet Korean Americans and Vietnamese are actually benefiting the greatest from this American experiment.
Actually, in California, as a direct result of Asian success, there were laws passed that
Do you hear her? She said as a direct result of Asian success. And the problem I have with these students already is that they're purposefully misinterpreting what he's saying. He's saying that if the Constitution is inherently racist, how are Asian Americans benefiting so vastly to where there has to be a law which allegedly hurts them? I'm not saying it does or doesn't. I'm just saying I don't know. He's saying if the Constitution is inherently racist, why aren't white people benefiting the most?
Stopped Asian Americans, or Asians period, Asian immigrants, from being able to become citizens or own land.
Chinese Exclusion Act, you don't recall
of Asian success. Structurally there have been many roadblocks.
So you're proving my point precisely?
No, I'm not.
So your point is that we were racist against Asian Americans and now they're the richest in America, so they went through a vast time of inequities and they rose above it and they're much richer per income and wealth than white Americans.
No, that happens because Americans realized that they up and they lost all of the labor that was going to be possible for people to work on farms in California in order to exploit the land that was in California. There was no way for them to have people to work there, and that's why they brought immigrants back. That's why.
So what social program
America
was designed?
Was literally built on our backs.
That again, swearing and saying things like that doesn't make your argument anymore.
One thing she said that it kind of confuses me is that she said Americans messed up. And then she said America was built on our backs. And the reason why I paused it for this specifically is her emphasis on the word Americans. I'm American. Am I a part of the American that you're talking about? Or are you only talking about, in this case, it seems like you're referring to white people. If that's the case, if you're only referring to white people, why did you use Americans? Am I not considered an American in your eyes? Just a question.
More valid.
But it helps me take out a little bit of my anger.
That's fair. Which
is valid for me
but
to
then if it was rigged for a specific group of people, Asian Americans are the richest by race. The second are Indian Americans, people from India. And the third would be white Americans.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, so how is why is that?
How do you feel about phrenology?
Racial inequality then on
What is phrenology?
So why? No, but explain to me why that is. I could tell you why it is though.
Maybe the top 1 or 5% are the richest. What about the global South? What about the poverty? What about the lowest?
What about okay, so let's talk about
the lowest 50%. What are
in America or globally?
Well, no, in America. And globally, as well
Okay.
as globally. What's their racial background?
Well,
What's the racial demographic of that? Mostly people of color, not white people.
But the Asian Americans are at the top of the socioeconomic ladder relatively.
A very small number.
No, in the aggregate. In the aggregate. If you look at the way the data is compiled and presented to us.
Oh, I get it now. When people say, or when a lot of these students say people of color, they ignore Asians and they ignore Indian Americans. They only are talking about black people and Hispanic people. They don't consider the successful minorities, people of color. Now I understand, because when I first heard the phrase people of color, I always got confused. First of all, what does that mean? Technically, everyone's a color. So when you say people of color, everyone's a color. So now I get it. You're only talking about poor people who are a color. So black people. And If the argument suits you, Hispanics too, but usually just black people.
They are the richest per capita group by race in America. Why? Because over the last 50 years, Asian Americans graduated from high school in record numbers. They did not commit crimes.
Because we're smarter than you. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
What?
That's a racist argument you just made.
Okay.
I'm not going to get into eugenics, but you just said you're smarter. I don't think that. I don't think any race is smarter.
There are other races that haven't done what you're describing.
Because
Haven't seen
okay,
the economic gains
okay, let me. So the two groups that are poorest by race in America are Native American Indians and African Americans. We've done the most to try to help them over the last 50, 60 years. We have the Bureau of Native American Affairs in the federal government. We spent $22 trillion in the federal government trying to help Black America, and Black America is poorer today than before we tried to start to help them. $22 trillion.
racism that just exists in the system.
Okay, so your argument institutional racism. My argument is failed policies that Lyndon Baines Johnson a bit.
I try to see the good in these students. I really do. I don't want to call them any names, but this argument that black people are just inherently victims of society, it has to go because it's racist. I'm not a victim of society just because I'm black. And when I hear students allude to that, it upsets me.
Bitter and committed racist, you and I will both agree, and a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat who didn't want to sign the Civil Rights Act passed the Great Society, which clustered.
Do you think JFK was going to sign the Civil Rights Act?
Well, he wanted to before he was.
He was certainly not going to.
So you're right. The Democrats were opposed to it. You're right. The Northeast Democrats.
LBJ was definitely for it because he was from South Texas.
So what did he call the Great Society bill?
Oh no, LBJ was a racist because he was an old white man.
Are all white people racist?
What?
I would say that I think white people have an implicit bias. You can argue with me. I think white people.
Wait. Time out. This girl. Put it on the screen. This girl just said all white people have an implicit bias. Look at the woman beside her. Do you understand the craziness in this statement? You're saying all white people are racist when you are white. And this is the problem. Why are you calling yourself racist to defend this white privilege argument? Forget what side you're on. Forget who you promote. Forget all of that. Isn't this insane? This is insane, right? You can't say all white people are racist. For one, it's not true. Your skin color doesn't automatically make you racist. For two, you are white. Why are you trying to incriminate yourself? It's kind of weird.
I think white people have an implicit bias. You can argue with me. I think white people have an implicit bias.
Do you understand how racist it is to think that all white people are racist?
We don't experience systematic racism. We don't experience racism.
Oh my
Okay.
Power structures.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So then how did Asian Americans climb up the power structure?
That has nothing.
No, so can anyone explain that to me? Because I can't.
Most Asian Americans here, okay? You said Native Americans, Black Americans.
Are the two poorest by race?
I know.
That's
what keeps them in common, okay? They've been here for a while.
Okay, so you know what keeps them in common?
Yeah.
They also get the most government benefits per capita than any other group in America because the way government programs are.
That's a symptom, not a cause.
No. And you can go to almost a direct date. Black America is poorer today than before we started helping Black America. The welfare programs.
By helping even by desegregating, I don't think that's much help.
Okay, so how about this? The black single motherhood rate in year 1964 was 22%. Now it's 74%. How on earth does that happen? It happens because we.
Did he just say desegregation isn't much help? It's crazy how a lot of these talking points are very akin to old slavery, old racist talking points. Like, don't desegregate. We don't want them around here. That's the same talking point. You just said it won't be much help to them. That's the same talking point. And I'm not trying to be ignorant or make fun of the students. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is bring light to this situation. When I watch these videos, I want you to really listen to what these students are saying. You have one young Caucasian American woman saying that all white people are racist. That's not normal. You have one student saying that desegregation hurts the black community. You have one student who alluded to the African American community or the black community, because we're not technically African American. We're anyways. You have one student basically imply that we're not Americans. This is not normal. But let's continue.
He subsidized single motherhood through the 70s, 80s, and 90s by saying if you get married, you lose your government benefits.
Birth control for lower income people. That's why.
Then why is it only their community, the black community, that saw a spike in the single motherhood rate?
Because they don't have the same access to it because they've been written out of those laws.
But weren't Asian Americans written out of the laws in the 1940s and 50s?
No, because they are.
We are not written out the laws. Oh my goodness. It gets worse and worse.
Are not black!
Oh, okay, so it's only black people that experienced a tough 20th century.
No, I'm talking about black people that were specifically written out of these laws.
Asian Americans were written out of laws in the 1940s. We put Asian Americans in internment camps.
I understand.
So it's so what you could.
That?
I'm sorry.
You did that?
Well, California Democrats did that in the 1940s under the direction of Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Switched positions on those ideas. Did you take U.S. history?
Yeah, I did. That is one of the biggest lies ever taught in U.S. history, and we could talk about that. So, Democrats have always been about control and always been about power. That is the continuity. Republicans have always been about freedom. The Republican Party was founded in 1860 as an anti-slavery... Freedom for all people. The Republican Party was founded as an anti-slavery party for rights of all Americans in 1860, founded in Ripon, Wisconsin, and it has not changed. It has always been about the equality and freedom of all people. The Democrat Party has always been about division.
What do you think about the war on drugs that the Republican
No, I
Party
actually would have more sympathy with you about decriminalizing marijuana and the war on drugs. So. Yeah, I know it's funny to believe in freedom, but
How come whenever we bring up something,
drugs, how is that about freedom?
I'm sorry.
But like Reagan was one of the biggest proponents of the war on drugs. How is that freedom? How is that pro-freedom?
Again, it was a bipartisan agreement, but I would agree. I think that's a valid point.
how come every single thing?
I think it's a well, I mean, I know it might amaze you to say that I actually said you made a valid point that Republicans have been hypocrites on the war on drugs over the last 30, 40 years.
But then can you also recognize that the war on drugs disproportionately hurt people of color, and that's one of the reasons why they haven't experienced the economic gains that you say everybody should have experienced?
So how...
You think... I don't know what to say, because honestly, I'm shocked that this level of racism still exists, especially with young people, because believe it or not, these students are our future. They are around my age, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. We're all around the same age. And this is probably some of the most racist things I've heard in a long time. He said black people were written out of the laws for Planned Parenthood. Have you ever went to a black ghetto, a black hood? What are things you'll find in a black hood? ABC stores and Planned Parenthoods. You will find one. Come on, man. I don't even know how you can write that. I mean, you can say that. But these students are surprisingly racist? I don't know. Let's continue.
How big of a reason do you think that contributed to the rising single motherhood rate in urban communities?
I mean, if the dad's in jail, then
So why is it only their community that saw the spike in single motherhood rate?
Despite
So many black mothers were being sent to prison!
And it was only black communities doing cocaine? It wasn't Hispanic communities or Asian American communities or white American communities doing crack cocaine?
Demographics for those communities.
The cocaine
Don't just
epidemic.
focus on black single motherhood.
Are you triggered, by the way?
Oh yeah.
We've all seen you be triggered on YouTube as well, so don't act like yelling and being upset is something independent to people on the left.
Well, I get yelled at more than that.
Dude,
But anyway.
Congress sort of 100 to 1.
But let me ask you a question. The crack cocaine epidemic in the 1980s hit all communities. It hit the black community the worst, but it hit all communities.
Yeah, so
Correct?
it hit all communities, but the black community the worst. Okay, so how come Congress threw a 100 to 1 sentencing disparity?
No,
with,
again, you're gonna
crack
find
cocaine having.
you're gonna find sympathy with me in the drug law argument. But what you're not gonna find sympathy is that we continually subsidize through these welfare programs and then broken public schools. We can get into that, which is a complete relationship with the Democrat Party and the cartel, which is public sector teacher unions. That does not allow good teachers to be paid more and bad teachers to be fired. Yes, the public sector teacher union is a cartel.
Okay, so you're saying teachers are paid too.
I would say, though, for Charlie Kirk, when it comes to a lot of disenfranchised public schools and lower income communities, it is very hard to fire teachers because there quite simply is not that many teachers. However, I would say since his plan is to raise teacher wage, that could fix that issue. But just, I don't understand how, this is a question I have for Charlie Kirk. I don't understand how firing teachers would solve an issue. Not saying these teachers deserve to be working or these teachers aren't necessarily harming. I'm saying that if you fire all the bad teachers in disenfranchised or lower income communities, there's already around 40 kids in the class. That will bump up to what, 60? And unless you can immediately start paying teachers more as soon as you start firing them, I don't know. I don't see how that can work. Not saying I disagree or agree. I just don't see it.
Too much.
I'm sorry?
You're saying teachers are paid too
No,
much?
teachers should be paid more and bad teachers should be fired. Under the current way the tenure laws are written and the agreement between the state government of Texas or the state government of Kansas and the public sector teacher unions, bad teachers cannot be fired. It's nearly
Why
impossible
don't we
to
talk about
fire
police
them.
unions?
Who
please?
built
What are you
the
talking about?
education system in Texas?
Democrats.
Who has been in power for the last 50 years in Texas?
Well, Republicans, just so you know, understand your history, Texas became a red state around like 88. So it was mostly Democrats that built these. So it was Lyndon Baines Johnson that was a Democrat.
Daddy.
And Kay Bailey.
Daddy.
Wait, it's funny.
Lyndon
So
Baines
by the way, so what did he call the Great Society Act since you call him Daddy? He called it he called it the N-word bill. He was a bitter and committed racist.
I know he was a racist, but we still got these things through.
Yeah, look at his face in the back. This girl is insane. This girl is insane, bro. Look at his face. Oh my goodness. This can't be life. Anyways, if you have any suggestions, comment them down below. I'll see you on the next one.